It was a tragedy that we lost many months of productive work because of the chaos created by the removal of the Speaker. But I would remind them that the Republican majority didn't remove the Speaker. Every single Democrat in the House, joined by just 8 Republicans, removed the Speaker. And under that Speaker, this House had passed landmark legislation to secure our borders, unleash American energy independence, and cut hundreds of billions of dollars of red tape. And to his argument that the economy is doing just great because of this administration, here's the one question they fear the most. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Everybody knows the answer to that question in their own lives, and they will vote accordingly. And that obviously terrifies the Democrats, and it should. But all of that's irrelevant to the question before us today. The question before us today was perhaps best expressed just the other day by President Biden himself. On January 5th, the president attacked those who he said, quote, traffic in lies told for power and profit, and who are driven by grievance and grift. Well, we're here because of concern that for many years, the president has been doing exactly that through a complex family influence peddling scheme. These concerns are backed by a growing trove of documentation, emails, testimony of associates, bank records, FBI informants that paint a troubling picture of a family influence peddling operation over many years in which the central feature was access to Joe Biden, involving millions of dollars of payments to family members and perhaps to Biden himself. Now, Joe Biden clearly, unequivocally, and forcefully has maintained that he had nothing to do with that operation. He never spoke to his family about it. So what is so hard for the family member who collected all of these millions of dollars of foreign payments at the center of all of this to come here and say so? The only answer I can think of is that Mr. Biden has been telling lies for power and profit, driven by grievance and grift. I hope there's another answer that would exonerate the president. And I would think that he, above all, would want to put those suspicions to rest. If there's nothing to these suspicions, just say so. How hard is that? And if there is something to these suspicions, the Fifth Amendment rightly protects all Americans from being compelled to provide self-incriminating testimony. That might be embarrassing, but no further information can be compelled. Instead, he's chosen to thumb his nose at the lawful subpoena of Congress, a subpoena that presents no questions as far as its legitimacy or constitutionality. And that act is contemptible, and it is criminal, and it cannot be allowed to stand. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report. Gentleman from Arizona reserves a point of order.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to the committee report for the resolution recommending that the House of
Representatives will be considered as read. The gentlelady is, while we're waiting to get the amendment, but the gentlelady may begin explaining her amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just returned from the Homeland Security Committee, and I again want to assert the comments of my ranking member, Mr. Chairman, and I hope that maybe in the interim you would correct that procedural injustice, if you will. I don't believe that there's any facts basis for Secretary Marcus to be impeached, but certainly the actions should be retained of impeachment by this Judiciary Committee. I wanted that to be on the record. As I said, there is an amendment at the desk, Jackson Lee, and my amendment notes that the House Republicans are continuing to harp on an investigation that has produced no evidence of wrongdoing. Specifically, my amendment will do the following. On page 7, strike the sentence that reads, information held and known to Mr. Biden is vital to the impeachment inquiry of President Biden, and the committee's ongoing efforts to craft legislative reforms to federal ethics and financial disclosure laws. On page 7, after the sentence that begins throughout 2023, insert the following. Congressional Republicans have received dozens of hours of testimony from government officials and former Hunter Biden business partners and obtained troves of documents in response to their requests. This includes more than 37,000 pages of bank records, including personal bank accounts of Biden family members and other private citizens produced by 9 different banks. In addition, the Biden-Harris administration has cooperated extensively with congressional Republicans' probe. This comes on top of evidence collected by Senators Johnson and Grassley as part of their 2020 investigation into Hunter Biden. Instead of focusing on passing meaningful legislation or act on imperatives for the American people, and mind you, coming out of Homeland Security, meaning fix the immigration system, House Republicans have instead focused solely on this investigation, an investigation that has failed to reveal any evidence of wrongdoing by President Biden. Furthermore, to the extent that the Judiciary Committee has been investigating the Department of Justice handling of the Hunter Biden criminal matter, the evidence has shown that the department has handled this investigation apolitically and in accordance with all relevant statutes, guidelines, and policies. The same statutes, guidelines, and policies that apply to all criminal matters. The evidence also shows that much of the purported evidence behind this investigation on further scrutiny is not grounded in reality. For example, when Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer falsely claimed that China, through Hunter Biden, made payments to now President Joe Biden in 2018, bank records clearly demonstrated that the payments from Hunter Biden, as we have heard, were made to Joe Biden to repay a car loan for a 2018 Ford Raptor truck. On page 7, strike the sentence beginning, "The committees have collected evidence," through the remainder of the section, which ends on page 11, to influence foreign business abroad and enrich the Biden family. I am glad to have been able to explain my amendment. It is unfortunate that we are here today engaging in this markup, which is nothing more than a political exercise, some would say stunt, and an embarrassing waste of time. I started out this morning by saying the highest regard that I have for this committee and the service that I've been honored to encounter. We've done many good things, and in the last 2 Congresses under Chairman Nadler, we've passed amazing legislation, even brought back to life the Violence Against Women Act that we have struggled with for over 5 years. So rather than passing legislation, indeed, to help the American people, my colleagues across the aisle are broadcasting their sole agenda for 2024, impeaching President Biden to help reelect Donald Trump. To that end, Chairman Jordan, claims to have evidence suggesting that the Department of Justice impeded the investigation into Hunter Biden. I don't believe there's anything that could be further from the truth, when in fact the witnesses he has brought before the committee, including Special Counsel Weiss himself, have completely refuted this claim. Witness after witness has said that there was no political inference and that the investigation was run by the book. But rather than being honest with the American public, Chairman Jordan is hiding the transcripts of these witnesses' testimony and obscuring the truth. We can do better, Chairman. We work together on many good issues. Hope we'll continue to work together. I'd like to see us pass human trafficking, anti-human trafficking legislation. I hope one day we'll be able to do that.
It's time of the gentlelady.
I would ask my colleagues to
Time has
support
expired.
the Jackson Lee amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Yields
Thank
back.
you.
The gentleman,
This
gentleman from Oregon is
Thank you.
recognized
Chairman,
on
I'll
the amendment.
withdraw the point of order.
Point of order is withdrawn. The gentleman from Oregon is recognized on the gentlelady's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I'd like to offer to be included in the record the committee discretion to obtain witness testimony. Todd Garvey, Legislative Attorney, December 22nd, 2023, Congressional Research Service.
Without objection.
Mr. Chair, I find the use of the phrase "unfortunate" by the gentlelady offering the amendment much more applicable to the activities of our current president than to the activities of this committee. It's unfortunate that our president has engaged in, at least on the face of things, influence, the sale of influence offered by his son, or the sale of access offered by his son. And what I think we need to be keeping in mind, and the language in her amendment clearly gives us the opportunity to call out the purpose of this hearing, which is to say, what is it and why is it that we need Hunter Biden as a witness so badly? And the answer, of course, is that the nation believes, at least polls indicate, that the sale of influence was occurring for years between Hunter Biden and his father. Now, is that true? Well, that's why we're having the inquiry to find out whether or not it's true. Whether or not Joe Biden was directly involved or benefited from the corrupt practices of his son, Hunter Biden, and others. Who could be a more important witness than Hunter Biden? And then to suggest that there's nothing prompting this inquiry is ridiculous. The record contains witness and written evidence that the president has lied about key facts in foreign dealings, was the focus of multi-million-dollar influence peddling schemes, and may have benefited from this corruption through millions of dollars sent to his family, as well as more direct and possible benefits. The current allegations contain an alleged effort to sell influence or access, as well as other wrongdoing. Corruption allegations involving a president are particularly damaging for our political system. They effectively dissolve the public trust in government. Self-dealing and influence peddling and obstruction all undermine the faith that federal laws are being enforced equally. So for this amendment to be offered to suggest that there's no link between the president and this type of conduct is ridiculous. The public is often skeptical of the ability or inclination of federal agencies to investigate allegations raised in relation to a sitting president. So the assertion by ranking member that special counsel has been appointed to look into this, the public does not believe that will occur. Current polling illuminates the deep distrust by the public in this kind of effort. Roughly half of the public does not have faith that the Justice Department investigation into the Biden administration would be fair or nonpartisan. And polls further indicate half of Americans also believe President Biden broke the law in relation to his son's business activities. So again, the amendment is not well taken. One other thing, Mr. Chair, I want to mention, as an attorney who's taken dozens, if not hundreds of depositions, I understand exactly why we need a deposition and not an appearance by Mr. Hunter Biden before this committee. Look at this committee. Look how it approaches things. This is no way to get to the facts. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and then each time after you finally get to a point, someone on the other side rushes in to try to obfuscate and confuse the issue. That's why you do depositions, to get to the point and to have the time to do it and not be burdened by how this committee operates. And I would just say there's a huge reason to do exactly what we're doing, and that is get to the bottom of the facts that would address the years and years and millions that Hunter Biden has spent selling influence. And who would Hunter Biden sell influence about or to? Who? Well, it would have to be his father. There's no one else in his circle of friends that would warrant such investment by outside influencers. Mr. Chair, I could obviously go on, but I will just suggest that the deposition is the proper approach. His refusal to appear for a deposition and then say he would put himself at the mercy of this committee is ridiculous, and he deserves to be held in contempt. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman?
On the amendment, Mr. Ranking Member?
Yes.
The gentleman is recognized on the amendment, and then we'll go to Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by assuring Mr. Bentz that the Democrats in this committee would be perfectly happy to have the rules of a deposition, 45 minutes or whatever it is, an hour of interview by one party and then by the other, apply in public in this committee, so that the gentleman's objections about 5 minutes would not apply. We do not want, and Mr. Biden properly does not want, a private deposition because we've seen, as I said before, that the Republicans have quoted improperly and from the private remarks and have distorted what they said by quoting half a sentence here and half a sentence there. This amendment notes that House Republicans are continuing to harp on an investigation. And let me just say one other thing. The fact that half of Americans may believe one thing or another proves nothing other than the effectiveness of propaganda by one party or the other. It has nothing to do with the truth of the matter. This amendment notes that House Republicans are continuing to harp on an investigation that has produced no evidence of wrongdoing. Despite more than 37,000 pages of documents the majority obtained, and despite interviewing more than a dozen witnesses, Chairman Jordan and committee Republicans have yet to produce a single shred of evidence that suggesting that President Biden engaged in any wrongdoing whatsoever. In particular, the congressional Republicans have received tens of thousands of pages of bank records, including the personal bank accounts of Biden family members and other private citizens. Republicans' claims about the president's supposed wrongdoing are not supported by the evidence. Not one witness has testified that President Biden personally benefited from Hunter Biden's business dealings. Republicans have claimed that a check from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden is somehow proof of foreign corruption. But the evidence actually shows that Hunter Biden repaid his dad for a car loan. That doesn't need to be the subject of a congressional investigation. There's also no evidence that President Biden interfered in the criminal investigation of his son. In fact, the witnesses who have been working on the investigation have all affirmed to the committee that there was no political interference. The committees have uncovered no evidence that Joe Biden profited from his son's business dealings or that he interfered in the criminal investigation of his son. No evidence whatsoever, and that's why it's one of the many reasons why this committee motion to hold Hunter Biden in contempt, given the fact that he is willing to testify and has offered to testify repeatedly, is a farce and ought to be defeated. I yield back. I yield to Ms. Jackson. I yield to Ms. Jackson Lee.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Texas recognized.
Let me express my appreciation to Mr. Nadler and to Congressman Dean. I was going to wait till afterward, but I'll take my time now very briefly and simply say that we've had every agency. I'm going to read in particular the work of the Treasury Department that has produced more than 2,000 pages of suspicious activity reports. SARS, the National Archives and Records Administration, has produced more than 62,000 pages of Vice President Biden's records on top of more than 20,000 pages it already made publicly available. And the Federal Bureau of Investigation provided access to and multiple briefings regarding a Form FD 1023 tip sheet, which contains sensitive information about a confidential human source. We have offered when I say we, the Democratic administration that believes in transparency has offered every aspect of what we could present to tell the truth. The truth is not being told here as relates to holding Mr. Biden in contempt. The truth is not being told because the facts evidence there is no basis for doing so. And if I might conclude, there is no basis for any form of impeachment against President Biden. There are no high crimes and misdemeanor. There is no treason. And every aspect of the government has, without in any way bias, presented this to committees of oversight and the judiciary. It seems that every time our friends on the other side of the aisle get in trouble and have no legislation to deal with the insulin $30, the Affordable Care Act, environmental crisis that we may be in, helping with inflation, which we've done, they throw out impeachment, just as the frivolous call for the impeachment of General Austin. Can we do something that helps the American people? My amendment should be passed because there's no evidence, Mr. Chairman, to move forward at all. I yield back.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes himself to speak against the amendment. The amendment would delete a number of important sections of the report. Specifically, I want to reference the report about the Biden's interaction with this Ukrainian energy company, Burisma. Both the ranking member and the gentlelady from Texas said there was no evidence. Let me give you some evidence. It's called the 1023 form that the confidential human source gave to the FBI that they recorded in this form. Remember the facts here. Hunter Biden is asked by the people, the head of Burisma, this Ukrainian energy company, to weigh in on their behalf to relieve the pressure that the prosecutor in Ukraine is applying to the company. They're doing that because they want to do a big IPO offering and expand their business. He's asked to weigh in. He immediately calls D.C. Mr. Archer, when he testified, said he actually called, one time he said he called Vice President Biden. Here's what the confidential human source related in the 1023 form, again, that the FBI tried to keep from us, but we finally got. They meaning Burisma, hired Hunter Biden to, quote, protect us through his dad from all kinds of problems. Now, this is the confidential human source, by the way. In one of these 90 different depositions and interviews we have done in this committee, Scott Brady, U.S. Attorney in Pittsburgh, said, U.S. Attorney in Pittsburgh, tasked by the Justice Department to evaluate information regarding Burisma, the Bidens, and Ukraine, said, we found this confidential human source to be credible. In fact, he said in that deposition, we looked at where he was and his schedule when these meetings took place and found that he was in those locations meeting with these people. So they checked him out and found him to be credible. And here's what the confidential human source further said in this document that the FBI recorded. Due to Shokin's investigation into Burisma, it would have substantial negative impact on Burisma's prospective IPO in the United States. It'd be problematic to raise capital, given in Shokin's investigation into Burisma. Again, Shokin is the guy Joe Biden fired. And how did he do it? He leveraged American tax dollars. He says, you're not getting the money unless you fire the guy. He did this 3 days after his son calls him at the request of Zolochevsky, the guy who's talking to the confidential human source who the FBI recorded in this form that the FBI didn't want to give us. And that's the section that the gentlelady from Texas wants removed from the report. Now, why would that be? Why would she want to remove that section? That seems to be the heart of the matter. Politician taking actions that benefit his family financially and using American tax dollars to accomplish that end. Again, not Jim Jordan saying it. We have Joe Biden saying it. He said it on tape. I told the government there, you want the money? Fire the prosecutor. Now we know why he want him fired, because the confidential human source told us. Again, why we couldn't see this, why we had to push so hard to finally get this information, I don't know. But what I do know is the confidential human source understood that Zolochevsky had already paid the Bidens to, quote, deal with Shokin. His words, not mine. I would yield the balance of my time to the gentleman from North Carolina.
I think the chairman and my thoughts went to the exact same place. The gentlelady from Texas in offering the amendment, in fact, in the amendment it says, furthermore, to the extent that the Judiciary Committee has been investigating the Department of Justice's handling of the Hunter Biden criminal matter, the evidence has shown that the department has handled this investigation apolitically in accordance with all relevant statutes, guidelines, and policies. She said she was embarrassed by this hearing, but she's not embarrassed by offering that language. That's remarkable on its own. But as to the 1023, they say there's no evidence. The CHS, who, as the chairman says, has been termed credible by the FBI and by the United States Attorney from Pittsburgh, he says that the CHS said that Zlochevsky said it cost $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to pay to another Biden. And that he was furthermore to suggest that's Hunter and Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, that's direct evidence of a bribe. Now, you'd say it's hearsay. In fact, it sounds like double hearsay at first, because you got the CHS. We don't know who that is, and he's not testifying in court. And then you got Zlochevsky being the declarant, the person who said it. But that'd be subject to a hearsay exception. He's a conspirator with the Bidens under the evidence that he's offering right there. And it would be admissible in a court of law if the CHS was testifying. So I'd yield to anybody on the Democrat side, on the minority, or anybody on the committee who can tell us, who is the CHS? I want to know who the CHS is. Who's the confidential human source? There's no evidence.
Will the
Let's
gentleman
look
yield?
and see if there's evidence.
The gentleman yield?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop, you've answered your own question.
The time is